Good evening, to the municipal meeting. I guess we're going to start with the Indigenous land acknowledgement. So I would like to begin the meeting by acknowledging that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Robinson-Huron Treaty area and wish to recognize their neighboring community of Dokis First Nation. While we meet today, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. So we will start with the adoption of the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Randy and Bob. Is there any additions to be made to the agenda? Seeing none. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? None. Okay, we'll keep going on. So we're going to start with reports and items for consideration. 7.1 general government is nil. 7.2 finances, nothing to report. 7.3 public works and environmental services, nothing to report there either. 7.4 recreation and community services. 7.4.1 a resolution to adopt a bylaw to authorize a land lease agreement with Albin Master Antenna, lease of space at the Albin Community Center. Bylaw 2022-06 land lease agreement, Albin Master Antenna. I need a mover and a seconder. Randy and Richard.
Duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-06 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the land lease agreement with Albin Master Antenna be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Anybody have any questions? Randy?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'd like a little clarification as to, are we leasing the land or the tower? Who owns the tower? What's the terms of the conditions of the lease? And who is operating off the tower? Because those directions aren't in here. Just for clarification for the public. Thank you.
Of course. So they have their own equipment for the cable system in Albin. They lease the space where the tower is actually sitting, and they lease some space within the building for their electrical equipment and access to it.
So the question is, who are they?
So the group is called Albin Master Antenna.
Mhm.
So they are the group that manages the cable system in Albin.
Who are they?
They have a direct, I'm not sure who the director is at this time.
Okay.
So they have a president and secretary, and so I'm not sure who they are at this point.
Okay, just 'cause we're entering and doing a leasing agreement here, it'd just be nice to know. So do we own the tower then?
No, they own the tower.
So we're
It's their
literally
equipment.
just leasing the footprint of the land that the tower's sitting on.
That's correct.
And we don't have any equipment on the tower ourselves.
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Okay, we're good. We'll continue on to 7.5 emergency and protection services. 7.5.1 a resolution to adopt a bylaw to authorize a municipal forest fire management agreement with the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry. Bylaw 2022-07 municipal forest fire management agreement with NDMNRF. So I need a mover. And Councillor Dave and a seconder, Councillor Rick. Does you want to read the motion first?
Yep. So it is duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-07, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the municipal forest fire management agreement with the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Does anybody have any questions for Rock concerning this? Counselor Randy?
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask Rock to speak on it for the public's interest, just a little detail so they know what we're talking about here.
This agreement is mostly for the forest fire season with our partners MNRF, where they cover some parts of our municipality and we cover some parts of their crown land. It's just to have a general agreement. So if there is a fire, we could go on either properties to manage that incident.
Does anybody else have any questions for Rock? Okay, seeing none, are we all in favor? Okay. Okay. 7.5.2, a resolution to adopt a bylaw to authorize a medical tiered response protocol with the Manitoulin Sudbury District Services Board Paramedic Service. Bylaw 2022-08, medical tiered response protocol with MSDSB. I need a mover. Counselor Dave and Counselor Dean.
It is duly moved and seconded, but resolved that bylaw 2022-08, being a bylaw to authorize the fire chief to execute the medical tiered response protocol with the Manitoulin Sudbury District Services Board Paramedic Services, be read at first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Does anybody have any questions? Counselor Randy?
I don't know, we should do something to slow this meeting down. Our staff, our visitors here are going to be disappointed if it's 5 minutes long and they have to leave because we're flying through this. No, I'm good, thank you.
We're good. That's just a normal general agreement that we have every year, Mark.
Yeah, and if I recall, the fire chief did report on it at an earlier meeting before in December, if I recall.
Okay, so is everybody in favor? Okay, we are all good. 7.6, building and planning and development. 7.6.1, a resolution to determine the next steps in relation to a short-term rental report presented at our last meeting on February 2nd by Andrea. Recommendation to direct staff to report back on a licensing and regulating framework applicable for short-term rentals. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Randy, seconded by Bob.
It is duly moved and seconded, whereas council considered a short-term rental report presented by the chief billing official, bylaw officer, and the director of planning at the meeting held February 2nd. And whereas council generally agreed to proceed with option 3, zoning bylaw amendment and licensing. Now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to report back on the overall short-term rental framework in terms of implementing a licensing and regulating program.
Does anybody have any questions? Counselor Richard?
Yes, thank you through you. Just a general question. So what are we looking for timeline here? And I guess one question, and the other question would be, so how many other municipalities have actually implemented this in either in the north or anywhere around Ontario?
Okay, I believe Andrea is online and can answer your questions, Rick.
Hello, through your worship, hello everybody. I don't have any exact numbers, but there are more and more municipalities putting licensing bylaws into place. Definitely more than when we first heard about them in 2019. And so I have also spoken to other municipalities who've decided not to put in licensing programs, but their bylaw teams have been kind of hoping that a licensing program would come. It's just such a big issue for so many municipalities where we live. As far as timelines go, I am pushing to have something in a draft form within the next few months. I've spoken with the enforcement team. I've spoken with a couple of the clerks. I do think that we have all of the pieces in place. as far as some reports that are already coming to council. You'll see administrative monetary penalties coming forward on a few key bylaws. You'll see, well, that's kind of the biggest piece. And then just doing research on other licensing programs. I really do think that we should have something in draft form within the next few months.
Thank you.
I have a question maybe. Is there any other municipalities around us looking at doing this? Because I mean, especially since some of our lakes are in 2 municipalities. So it'd be nice if, you know, some of us would be following all same suit kind of thing.
Through you, your worship, I'll answer that. So since I do also represent St. Charles and Killarney, and they have similar issues with short-term rentals, both their councils have been presented with the same information. Both of them expressed interest in seeing some sort of licensing program going forward. As far as anything outside of that, I know, I don't really know anyone else in our district, but I know everybody's talking about it. So I'm not quite sure what stage everybody's at.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions for Andrea? Okay, seeing none. Is everybody in favor? Oh, are we good, or did you have a question, Randy? Dean? Put your mic on.
My question was simply to ask what the timeline, if we have a timeline on this, the next report back, or how long are we looking at, or is there encumbrances that make it impossible to move more quickly on this?
I think the chief building official and bylaw people have expressed that within the next couple of months. So I'm hoping, you know, it gives us March, April, so sometime in May of some type of draft to come back. to
Something we
council.
can look at anyway.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So all in favor? Okay, we are good. Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks, everyone.
Correspondence. We have 8.1, a letter from Mayor of Town of Aurora, a request for support to dissolve the OLT, which is the Ontario Land Tribunal. Do we have a mover? Councillor Dave and a seconder, Mayor Peugeot. Does anybody, do you want to read the motion first, or do we want to discuss first?
I can read the motion. It's a long one, so it's going to take some time.
Okay.
It is duly moved and seconded, whereas municipalities across this province collectively spend millions of dollars of taxpayer money and municipal resources developing official plans that meet current provincial planning policy. And whereas an official plan is developed through months of public consultation to ensure that future planning and development will meet the specific needs of our community. And whereas our official plan includes zoning provisions that encourage development of the missing middle or gently density to meet the need for attainable housing in our community. And whereas our official plan is ultimately approved by the province. And whereas it is within the legislative purview of municipal council to approve official plan amendments or zoning bylaw changes that better the community or fit within the vision of the municipality of French River official plan. And whereas it is also within the legislative purview of municipal council to deny official plan amendments or zoning bylaw changes that do not better the community or do not fit within the vision of the municipality of French River official plan. And whereas municipal planning decisions may be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal, formerly the Ontario Municipal Board or OMB, an unelected appointed body that is not accountable to the residents of the municipality of French River. And whereas the OLT has the authority to make final decision on planning matters based on a best planning outcome, and not whether the proposed development is in compliance with municipal official plans and provincial planning policy. And whereas all decisions, save planning decisions made by municipal council are only subject to appeal by judicial review, and such appeals are limited to questions of law and process. And whereas Ontario is the only province in Canada that empowers a separate adjudicative tribunal to review and overrule local decisions applying provincially approved plans. And whereas towns and cities across the province are repeatedly forced to spend millions of dollars defending official plans that have already been approved by the province in expensive, time-consuming, and ultimately futile OLT hearings. And whereas the lengthy, costly OLT hearings act as a barrier to the development of attainable housing. Now therefore be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of French River requests the Government of Ontario to dissolve the OLT immediately, thereby eliminating one of the most significant sources of red tape delaying the development of more attainable housing in Ontario. And be it further resolved that a copy of this motion is sent to Honorable Doug Ford, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Leader of the Oppositional, the leaders of the Liberal and Green Party, all MPPs in the province of Ontario, large urban mayors caucus of Ontario, small urban mayors and regional chairs of Ontario, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Okay, thanks, Mel. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Counselor Richard?
Thank you. So I guess the question I have is, I agree that I agree that there's a lot of red tape when it involves the OLT. And we probably know of a lot of projects in the area that have actually gone through this process and holding on for years, and there's no progress being had. But what's the alternative? I mean, not to say that, you know, people shouldn't have the process of appeals, but what's the what would be the alternative? I mean, you know, it's nice to say that we want to shoot down a process, but what would be the alternative in order to move forward? Do we know?
Anybody answer? You can answer, Dean?
Well, I think the alternative is simply that we're governed by our official plan and our zoning regulations, countless things that are already in place, and that when we make a decision, we do it based on those regulations that we work under. And it seems pointless to, after we go through all of that sort of thing, to be subject to a change in what we would like as a result of an OLT hearing. And as it's plainly said in the resolution, it's an adjudicative body that isn't we don't have anything to say about it or what it does or how it decides. We can't even appeal their decisions. I think it's a good thing to get rid of it. We've been through one exercise or two exercises already where it's affected us, and usually adversely.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Does anybody else have an opinion or a comment or question? Mayor Pajot?
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yep.
We can.
okay. I totally agree with Dean. I think this is just another layer of bureaucracy that we don't need. The other thing too is when we're making changes or things come before council, depending on the issue, there are public hearings, and the public is advised as to what issues are being brought forward and what changes are being brought forward. And they do have a chance to make their opinions known. And so to me, I'm not sure where this is going to go, but I'm hoping that we get rid of it. I think it's a good thing.
Okay. So I think we're ready to pass the vote. I think all in favor. Okay, we are good. So now we have the consent agenda. I need a mover and a seconder, Counselor Randy and Counselor Bob.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be resolved that council approves the items of the consent agenda under section 9.1 and receives the items under section 9.2 and 9.3.
Does anybody have any questions or comments or? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? We are good. Number 10, there is no item separated from the consent agenda. No notice of motions. I guess we are now at announcements and inquiries. Does anybody have any announcements to make? Counselor Bob? None. Counselor Randy?
More of a question. Do we have anybody from Public Works on the line? Okay, maybe Mark, you can answer, or Melanie. We found out yesterday from our MPP that the bridge on Highway 64 crossing the French River was going to be down to a single lane with traffic lights over the summer. They're going to be doing a rehabilitation of that bridge, but there wasn't much detail. And I'm just curious if we knew the duration, or we had been notified of the closure of that major highway in our area that's going to make travel this summer very difficult.
Apologize, Counselor. I'm not fully aware, but certainly will communicate with the Public Works Department to see if they've received notice. Traditionally, we do get notified of those types of closures, but we'll look into it.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, the MPP had placed it on Facebook yesterday that this was going to be happening. And so just for the public's notice, it's going to be a huge travel, issue for people trying to get from Albin to Noelville. So, yeah, thank you.
For the public's information, whatever information we do find, we'll certainly post it on our website to share the information.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm just busy campaigning. We are 3.5 months from a provincial election that I'm participating in, and all's good. So thank you.
Councillor Dean. Put your mic on.
Interesting comment. Because I was in Sudbury so late last night, I actually left Sudbury last night at 9 o'clock when I left the gas station in the south end. And I want to tell you this because I found it so astounding. I drove from there to home. That's down 69, 64, through the village of Albin, all the way on 607 Dry Pine Bay Road, and did not encounter one vehicle. On my lane, there was nobody in front of me, nobody behind me on that whole 40 miles. It wasn't that late. It was 9:30 in the evening.
I was actually leading you home, Dean. You were following my taillights, actually.
I never saw them. I gotta tell you that, because I was looking, because I couldn't believe it that there was quite a bit of northbound traffic. There was trucks and a few cars, but southbound, nothing. All the way down. How often could you get on that road and drive that far and not see a car in your lane? Heading south. Nothing. Right now, Dry Pine Bay Road is becoming just ice. They pack snow with the rain on it. You can imagine what's happening. So we'll need sand on that very quickly. Anyway, that's my comment.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Dave.
Oh, I'm just gonna copy Bob. I had the same announcement as Bob.
Okay. Mayor Pajot.
Yes, the food bank's going to be open tomorrow at between 9:30 and 1 o'clock, provided I can get out of my driveway. And the Albin seniors will be starting their lunches again quite happily on March 4th at the ACC. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richard.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Do you guys have any comments or questions for us tonight? No? Seeing none? Mel and Rock, everything's good with you guys? Okay, Councillor Randy?
I just throw one more out there. I actually forgot the French River Lions Club is meeting tomorrow night at the Beaux Jours. We're always accepting new members, and if anybody's interested, they should come out and join us tomorrow night, guys. We really would appreciate some new community members joining our group and helping us grow. We do a lot of good work for the community. Thank you.
And if I might.
Yep.
One more item I have is my first meeting on the Sudbury Board of Health is tomorrow afternoon. And I tell you, Randy, I wouldn't have to tell him, it's quite a hassle to go through to get to the point where you actually sit in on a meeting with that thing. But they don't use Zooms, they use TeamViewer. And you know, that meeting we have coming up with the land water, they do the same thing. So I don't know whether you've got it on your computer, you've got to download that before you can use that, but in any event, I've had more discussions and talks with the people at the Board of Health on this. You'd think that I was going to be in Parliament or something.
It is quite an extensive process, isn't it, Dean?
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm to understand it's the main bridge right at French River there for Rangers Bay on either side. That mean, yeah. Yeah, so that'll be quite a huge backlog, I'm sure. They're gonna put lights up to restrict one lane travel each way, so yeah.
Is it the southbound or northbound?
Well, both. They'll do one side and then probably flip to the other,
What the
so.
hell's the matter? They're brand new.
No, the old one, not the brand new one.
I'm assuming it's the old bridge, which is
Oh,
now
it's the
becoming the
old bridge we're
service
talking
road, but
about?
before we speak too much or get into a discussion, let us find the information and we'll get it back to council.
No, I think it's Highway 64 right past Giselle's house. That's the map that I have.
Okay, so we have some research, some digging to go do and get some research, and Mark will report in 2 weeks and see what he finds out. We like giving him jobs. He doesn't work hard enough. Do you have a comment for us?
Surprising, nobody mentioned the budget process that we undertook with council on February 3rd. Just for the public's information, we had a great afternoon with council. We have a working document that will be presented to the public on March 2nd during our council meeting. So stay tuned and we'll give you the details of the budget, and I'll leave the proposed increase to a councillor or the mayor to announce to the general public.
Okay, I guess that.
One, Renee.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Randy, the Lions Club meeting is not tomorrow night, it's on the 24th.
Okay, because Lion Ellen had sent me a link saying it was tomorrow.
Oh, Ellen sent me saying Thursday, February 24th.
Okay, my apologies if I mixed the date up.
That's okay. I just didn't want you to sit all by yourself, waiting for the rest of us to show up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so for me, not too much. Drive safe out there when you go home tonight. And I believe we have some Rapids games happening on the weekend at the arena, Friday and Saturday. So it's nice to see them back on the ice and people out. And other than that, I don't think there has been much going on around town. Happy Family Day weekend. Hope everybody gets out there and does something with their families. And that's it. That's all I have. So I need a mover and a seconder for the adjournment. A confirmation bylaw. Okay, that's never in here. Oh, it's down below, but the adjournment's before. Adjournment is 14. And then, okay, I get it. I'm okay. 14.1, resolution to adopt a confirmation bylaw. So I need a mover, Counselor Randy and Counselor Dave. All in favor? Okay, and now we need a resolution to adjourn. Counselor Bob and Counselor Richard. And all in favor? We are good. Okay, you have a good evening and we'll see you in 2 weeks.